Anyway, let's get into politics and talk to Shadow Business and Trade Secretary Andrew Griffith is here from the Conservatives. Very good morning to you, Mr Griffith.
Good morning.
Good morning. Do you apologise on behalf of the Tories for that statement that you put out about Suella Braverman referencing her mental health?
Yeah, I think that was wrong. I went into politics after a career in business because of people's ideas, ideas about how we can make our country great again, how today we can help the myriad of small businesses on our high street in the face of Labour's attack on business rates. So it shouldn't be about people's individual characteristics. I think it was wrong. The party withdrew that and said it was a mistake.
Yeah. Do you know, Andrew, I always love when politicians talk about real issues that affect people. And in this case, you're talking about business rates which affect people who are trying to set up shops and businesses on the high street, and they are suffering. And when our high streets suffer, we suffer as well.
Yeah, it's just atrocious, actually. It's as bad as the weather, on the high streets. Businesses are just bleeding out. And it's not just pubs, it's hotels, it's hair salons, it's music venues, it's pharmacies, post offices. The Chancellor's made a really big mistake. I don't think she understood fully the impact of the revaluation of business rates. We Conservatives have called for 250,000 of our smallest businesses to be taken out of business rates entirely. It's a really bad cost on the business. They're dealing with higher wage costs, subdued consumer demand because we're all paying higher energy bills, and it's incredibly tough. And she just made it much, much tougher. So we're calling for a full U-turn. I think what we're going to hear today is a sticking plaster. On her way to the airport to fly off to China again, she's going to toss a packet of Band-Aids out the window when actually people are in the casualty ward bleeding out.
Can I take you back to that statement on Suella Braverman? Not only has it been described as nasty politics, gutter politics, weaponising a person's mental health struggles, so big questions about how appropriate it was, but also questions about how organised you are at Tory HQ, and perhaps this is indicative of the incompetence within the Tory operation. If it was so clear, as you say that it is in the statement, that she was going to defect, it was a case of when, not if, is a direct quote from that statement, then shouldn't that have been approved a long time in advance? Instead, that statement was put up and left there for 2 hours.
Look, with the best will in the world, I don't run central office. I'm here to speak up for 6.5 million small businesses across the country. I've said that I thought it was a mistake, and I was pleased that it was retracted. Human beings do make mistakes of all kinds. And look, I think the Conservative Party, though it's had its difficulties in government and in recent years, is back. There's a seriousness about what we're trying to do. We're talking about the hard choices, which was one of the reasons why in office not everything that should have been done was done, because people weren't telling the truth. They weren't willing to make the trade-offs. When we talk about how we would make life better for small businesses, we're identifying the red tape we'd cut, the welfare that we would reform, so that there's money, so they don't have to have increases in business rates or employment taxes or all of the other things that are just a headwind for those businesses.
It's a huge defection to Reform UK, losing Suella Braverman. At the rate at which you're hemorrhaging talent, how concerned are you about who's going to be left in the Tory party?
Well, look, I'm enormously concerned about the future of our country. The reason I'm in the Conservative Party is I think they are the most effective force, the deepest bench strength. And, if we work hard and hold this government to account, as we've done with forcing U-turns, now 15 on so many issues, from Chagos to the winter fuel allowance, then we can do our job, we can serve our apprenticeship. The British people, I hope, will see that if you want a party or a government that's serious about growing the economy, then we are the party that can do that. I'm not here to criticise other parties. I'm pleased that running our great country is a competitive domain. People have choices, but I'm very serious about trying to articulate why the Conservatives are the best choice.
And just finally, can we touch on China? This story at the front page of the Daily Telegraph today. China hacked the phones in number 10, not necessarily the Prime Minister's, but the top aides in number 10 for years, the paper has revealed this morning. And this we know as the Prime Minister is off to Beijing. Is it appropriate that he takes that trip? And are you concerned about our closer ties with China, considering these stories that we keep hearing so much about?
Yeah, I'm very concerned by these reports. I think we need to be very clear-eyed. We've been told time and time again from intelligence services and others that China is a threat, that they are conducting espionage in the United Kingdom. And I just don't think, although we should trade with China, I don't think it's a good look that when the Prime Minister is on the ropes, when he's been exposed for his weak Chagos deal, giving up British sovereign territory that has very serious security implications, when Jimmy Lai is still in a Chinese prison, that he's running off to China at this particular moment in time when there's really big issues like the state of the economy, like our high streets, work that needs to be done here at home.
OK, Andrew, thank you very much indeed for that. Andrew Griffith is the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary, speaking to us live from Westminster now. Thank you, Andrew.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Catherine Forster, our political correspondent, our chief political correspondent, here to give her view on what Andrew Griffith had to say there.
Well, I think unfortunate timing for the government that these allegations that China has hacked phones in number 10 Downing Street itself, not necessarily the Prime Minister's phones, but people very close to Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak and indeed Liz Truss. The Prime Minister today is getting on a plane with a whole load of business leaders and the Chancellor and I think the Business Secretary as well on this mission to China. The government, of course, are desperate to get growth. They promised us that. They said it was their #1 mission. We're not having much of it. The Prime Minister giving an interview last night saying, look, I am not going to choose between the European Union and America and China. We've got to interact with China. We don't have a choice. But the Chinese haven't approved the British embassy in Beijing. The current one is literally said to be falling apart. We, last week, I think it was, gave approval to this massive, mega Chinese embassy in the heart of the City of London, just a metre from critical cables. So I think there'll be a lot of concern about that. on Suella Braverman, I was there at this veterans rally when that defection came. We knew that she was likely to be the next one to go. We thought for a long time it was very likely. Still, we didn't expect it yesterday, and it does add up, doesn't it, to a pattern. I think there's been 4 Conservative or former Conservative MPs gone over to Reform in the last 2 weeks. Nadine Zahawi, who currently doesn't have a seat, Robert Jenrick, who does, Andrew Rosendale, who does, and Suella Braverman. So it adds to the momentum that Reform have got. The Conservatives taking this very steady as she goes approach. They think that they can win ultimately on the economy, but what a battle it's going to be.
Catherine, got to just interrupt you there because Steve Reid, the Housing Secretary, is now available at Westminster. Steve, morning to you. Sorry it's so inclement for you, but we'll do our best to get through all this.
It is a bit, but it's good to be.
Good man.
It's always good to be with you, Eamon, despite the horrible weather.
Yeah. Tell me this, Steve, what about the Chinese and this meeting with them? How do we deal with the Chinese? What's the mood going to be like around that table? I tend to think we're all very respectful, maybe too respectful to the Chinese, but then maybe I'm wrong. Are we frightened of them?
Well, I think we need to cooperate where we can, but challenge where we must.
Yeah.
China's the second biggest economy on the planet now, and there are, I think it's around 370,000 jobs in the UK are directly dependent on trade with China. So we shouldn't do anything to put those people's incomes, wages and livelihoods at risk. And, we should make sure that we've got a fair trading arrangement with China. So the Prime Minister's going over to Beijing and Shanghai, as I understand it. A lot of British business leaders are going with him because they want to grow their businesses by doing trade with China as well, because it means jobs and it means wages and it means economic growth here at home. But it's always going to be eyes wide open. We know the risks that China can pose in terms of security. We're working with the security services to make sure that we always manage those risks and put British security first. But when you've got an economic giant like China, we would be crazy to say, no, we're not going to have the jobs, we're not going to have the investment, we're not going to have the wages that will benefit British people at home.
Was this trip by the Prime Minister to Beijing determined by you giving the green light to this controversial super embassy in London for the Chinese?
No, not at all. In fact, the UK is looking to build a new UK embassy in Beijing. This is what countries do from time to time. If you have relations with a foreign, if you have relations with a foreign country, then we have an embassy in their capital. They have an embassy in our capital. Now, of course, I've heard I think it's scaremongering, to be honest, about the Chinese embassy in London. Of course, we need to be alive to the security risks. That's why we have security services. But they have made very, very clear it is better for UK security to have the Chinese embassy in one location than 7 different locations, which is how it is currently. So the security services expressed no unreasonable concerns about relocating the Chinese in one embassy. In fact, they think it's better than 7 different sites. And I think that piece of information doesn't get across often enough.
Is it scaremongering, though, when we're looking at the front page of the Daily Telegraph this morning, revelations from US intelligence that China hacked phones inside Number 10, not necessarily the Prime Minister, but aides and senior staff very close to Prime Ministers, in Number 10 for years. So we know that they've been hacking the phones of Number 10 for years. There's concerns about this embassy and those critical data and communication cables running underneath it. Why then is the Prime Minister choosing now of all times to cozy up to China? Is he putting a potential trade deal over national security here in Britain?
Absolutely not. We are very alive to the security risks of China and the Chinese, and that's why the government's invested an extra £170 million in cyber security so that we can protect British businesses, British government from any attempt to eavesdrop by the Chinese. But as I said earlier on, the security services say that we can keep an eye on China better if their embassy is in one location rather than 7 different locations as at the moment. I mean, you can understand that because you have to monitor 7 different places. That's a lot more effort by the security services than knowing that they're in one place. Now, having said that, always eyes wide open when it comes to national security, but China's also the second biggest economy on the planet. 370,000 British jobs depend on it. we're not going to throw those people on the scrap heap and tell them they can't have a job anymore. We have to trade with China, but we do it eyes wide open. National security is always paramount, as it should be.
Yeah, Steve, I'm looking at the weather there, and you're brolly blowing about, and I'm thinking, you know, there you are. You are the
Trying to
housing.
Hold on, Eamon.
Yeah, you are the housing secretary, and I think about people who have to go out there and build houses, and I know you've got this ambitious house building programme. It will be easily delayed on a day like that. That's what happens. How's it going for you?
Well, we've just, you know, the housing sector has been flatlining for years. Since about 2023, we've seen really low levels of house building going on. In part, that's because the previous government scrapped the house building targets. Now, we've changed the law already to speed up the planning process so that we can get applications through the system faster, with the public still being able to have their say about what's being put forwards, but we're just starting to see things turning around. So figures I saw last week, it's that current, showed that the starts on new house building has gone up 18% compared to a year ago. That's nearly a fifth. Now, that's starting to turn the corner. We want it to go much further than that, of course we do, but we are starting to see that change now. So I'm optimistic about where we're going with this. Speaking to mortgage lenders as well, they're telling me now there are more mortgage products available for borrowers than has been the case for 18 years. Now, that is the case of these lenders responding to demand from people that are looking for a mortgage. So, very early days, Eamon. I'm not going to oversell it, but we are starting to see things turn the corner.
That mortgage issue is a big issue, because today a lot of people come out of a 5-year fixed deal that they had, and so they may have been paying 2% and they'll now be expected to pay 4% or whatever. So how the markets play with the money people have got available is vital.
Oh, it's vital. You know, our homes are, for most people, the biggest investment, biggest purchase they will ever make. And it's more than an investment, of course. It's your home. It's where you live. It's your security. You know, thanks to the changes that we've made in managing the economy, we've seen 6 interest rate cuts in a row now. That has reduced the cost of mortgages. That is one of the reasons people are out there and looking for mortgages, looking to buy a new home. In some cases, get their first foot on that housing ladder that I was able to do in my early 30s, but for so many young people today, it had become something of an impossible dream. Well, I want to make that dream a reality. That's why we're determined to get the homes built.
Steve, just wanted to ask you another thing. I mean, I think on Sunday you were over all the news programmes talking about Andy Burnham and why the National Executive thought that he shouldn't be standing as an MP. Has he phoned you? Has he spoken to you? Have you spoken to him?
I haven't yet. I mean, I speak to Andy very, very regularly. I was up there with him only a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, I know firsthand that Andy Burnham is doing an outstanding job as the Mayor of Greater Manchester. But in the Labour Party's rule book, because a mayor standing down, whether it's in Manchester or anywhere else, to fight a parliamentary by-election would trigger a by-election for the mayoralty, that in Manchester's case is the equivalent of 20 constituencies. Now, people voted for Andy in Greater Manchester 2 years ago to serve a 4-year term. He has to seek permission to change his mind and stand for Parliament. On this occasion, the NEC decided it was in the best interest of the public in Greater Manchester that he continues to serve his term, and we select a different candidate for
Mr. Reid,
the by-election.
You all appreciate we're in an...
so I can hear you, Eamon.
You'll appreciate we're in an election period now, so we'll just be very careful about any chat about by-elections. But in terms of threats to Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister looks very weak now, doesn't he? We've got 13 U-turns and counting. Now, we had number 10 briefing against Wes Streeting just before Christmas. We've now got the very popular Andy Burnham being blocked from returning to Westminster. Got a rebellion brewing in the Labour Party. Many would say this is the acts of a weak Prime Minister who's trying to cripple his rivals, who many would also say would do a better job than him as Prime Minister. Is he putting his personal ambition before what's right for the party and right for the country?
I'll tell you what we're not going to do, and that's repeat what the Tories did, where they kicked out their prime ministers. Remember that revolving door of chaos we had, where we had one prime minister after another, after another, after another, absolutely no consistency in what they were doing. It led to them crashing the economy, putting people's mortgage costs up, ending house building. You know, people didn't get a wage rise for over 10 years. We're not going to do that game. Look what's happened to the Tories because of what they did. They've collapsed. There are now more members of Liz Truss's cabinet in Reform UK than on Kemi Badenoch's front bench. The Tory party has all but died. So we're not going to do that, and we're going to focus outward on the interests of the British people. We're not going to navel gaze, and we're going to stay the course because we're seeing the economy growing now. We're seeing wages rising faster than prices for the first time in 10 years, and we're seeing NHS waiting lists fall at the fastest rate for 15 years. So change is happening, and we're going to keep driving it.
And just finally, Mr Reid, your thoughts on the statement issued by the Tory party yesterday on Suella Braverman's defection to Reform UK, which referenced her mental health. What did you make of that statement?
Well, you know, whatever you think of Suella Braverman, I'm not a fan. I think that was outrageous. I mean, who knows what the truth here is, but if somebody has or hasn't got mental health issues, you should never use that to attack them. It's unfair on the individual, and it's unfair on the many people in this country who experience mental ill health. I think it was a really low blow from the Conservatives. They were absolutely wrong to do it, and they shouldn't have done.
Steve, we'll let you get some shelter. Thanks very much for your time this morning. Always
Thank
good
you.
talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for braving the rain for us, Mr Reid.